Kelvin, it's a long time since we've done this together.
Yeah.
We almost started together working on 8 Songs for a Mad King.
Yeah.
How would you describe this piece? Because it's a bit of a one-off.
It is an opera, it's music theatre, it's iconoclastic, all these terms you could use about it. I think it's a very truthful piece. It's a piece that deals with emotion. It deals with a man who is troubled and yet understands on times what he's going through. So challenged, but it's something which is very satisfying.
Do they starve you?
The way that the piece it started, in a way, was from a combination of artists.
Yes.
In particular, Roy Hart, vocal artist, and Peter Maxwell Davies, composer. Roy was an extraordinary artist who had developed a new vocal technique. He could sing across 6 octaves, the entire range of a piano. He developed a school of vocal techniques, which still exists today.
Yes.
Max, I think, was intrigued by this, but what was more important was that he had an idea of looking into trauma and the way that this kind of vocal work could display or explore or express trauma.
Yeah.
And one of the things they talked about was the trauma of war, the sounds that victims of war injuries would make, screaming in pain.
Yeah.
And Roy Hart was, I think, interested in taking that a step further. So the combination of Roy Hart and Maxwell Davies somehow allowed them to make the step to write a piece that was utterly unique, and yet at the same time, it had to be about something.
Yeah.
And I think that it really is about us, here and now, always, forever. When you're performing the piece, do you feel that humanity?
I feel it has to come from within. I think a danger with a piece like this is that an artist will look at it and they see the notes on the page and they'll just superimpose effects. Now that, in my view, is not how it should be. It's about finding from within that emotional response to the text and to what the composer has written, and finding a way of expressing that. I mean, I know Max has said to me that people should have sympathy with the king. They shouldn't be laughing at him, although maybe there will be times for that in a sympathetic way, but it's not about that. It's about understanding what this man is going through.
Coming to the piece 40 years after it was first written, we have to take a fresh look at it. Ostensibly, it's the madness of King George III. I'm intrigued by that because he's a real character, he's a real man. You've performed this so often. How often do you feel that you are required to play George III, or is it somebody else who thinks he's George III?
I think it almost changes, do you know? Yes, I do think I'm George III as I'm singing it, but also it does have this universal application. So out of it come other things. There is this very touching quality about it, and there's this aspect where you're moving from so-called madness into lucidity, and that I find is fascinating.
There are some stories about when this piece was first performed. 1969. It's hard to imagine how extraordinary this piece must have sounded back then. And this guy is screaming and ranting and asked to produce chords and incredibly low gravelly notes and ridiculously high notes. And
he never thought it would be more than one performance. He just wrote the piece. And that first performance, people were walking out, shouting, screaming, but other people were applauding. It was one of those rite of spring moments, I suppose, which, if we're honest, every composer would like to have.
And for audiences now, do you think it has the same impact?
I think it does, do you know? But I think when people come to it fresh, it has an amazing impact. Even though people know the piece, they still are shocked when it happens. In a few weeks, we're going to be actually performing this piece. What are you thinking? Are there any new ideas? I hope there are.
For me, the most important thing is the man in the middle of it.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in is the reality of your mind. There won't be any George III accoutrements. There won't be, period furniture.
No.
There won't be period clothes.
No.
None of that stuff, because I think that in a way gets in the way, that will clutter it.
But the George III wig is just giving a nodding in the
It's
direction,
a reference.
is it? A reference.
It's a reference to the man on which this whole thing is based.
At the moment, we've been talking about this piece as quite a serious piece, which it is, but there are moments of humour.
Oh, enormous humour in it. There's great wit. And I think the thing about finding the wit in it is where we can share the wit, not laugh at, in a way, but laugh with.
I think the genius of this piece is that Max has set the words in such a way that they're really married well.
As a concept, it's a completely cohesive piece of work.
I agree. I think it's a masterpiece.